Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain.
We're going to tell you the story of our Dahlia story. We started growing in 2003. Yikes, a long time ago.
Now you phrase that like a question. Are you not sure?
I am. Anyway, and Dahlias was one of the first flowers that we grew. And I'm going to insert a whole bunch of pictures into this video of the dahlias that we've had throughout the years. And you'll see in the first picture, the land that we opened below the house was where we first started our dahlias. Mm-hmm. And we started with seed dahlias. And
meaning you raised them from seed.
Well, we bought seeds and started them. And we also bought some tubers from Swan Island, which is just about 75 miles north of us, and highly recommend going there for a tour when they finally open up again.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. So anyway, in that first picture you can see that we had dahlias in long rows, and we discovered very quickly that seed dahlias didn't work for us. They
were just like,
they were bad.
They were
beautiful colors.
It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, you had no idea. They were all kinds of colors, so it was really colorful.
Most of them were singles, though.
But they were all mostly singles. And when you would cut them, which we tried to do, cutting them to take to the farmer's market where we started, they would lose their petals. They'd be like missing teeth. And the Swan Island ones were wonderful.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's their specialty. So, I mean, they bred for, vase life and upright nature of the plant. That was the other thing is the plants, when we started them from seed, they were gangly, they needed support. They were just
some of them were like 10 feet tall.
Yeah, so if somebody hands you dahlia seeds, you go, well, that's an interesting experiment, but don't bank on it for cuts. I mean, you might get one out of it,
but for us it didn't work.
No.
So we moved on to acquiring more and more dahlias from friends and more from Swan Island, and
then you did one thing crazy, Costco once.
Yeah, that's
why you got cafe au lait.
Let me tell that story. So one day we were walking through Costco, like the second year we were in the
it was
market.
Probably like 2004 or something.
2004,
like that.
Right. And I spotted their bags of bulbs that we bought those before, and they had dahlias. And then we bought a couple of different bags, two different varieties. And one had Ivanetti and My Love, which is a white spiky, spidery type one, and My Patty, which was like kind of a water lily that was
it's a water lily type thing. It had pink in it.
It was kind of a hot pinky one. And then in one of the bags was cafe au lait. And this was way before people ever looked at cafe au lait.
Yeah, cafe au lait is a really old variety.
It was about this big, not super big. It was not a dinner plate size. It was more, we called it a salad plate. It wasn't as big as a dinner plate that we had.
I think it's officially a dinner plate, but it's not a very large one.
Yeah, it's on the really smallest side. And the second thing about the color was it was cafe au lait. It was coffee color with lots of cream in it.
Mocha.
Mocha. I mean, it was...
There was no pink in it
There was no pink.
Or strawberry color or whatever it is.
Nothing. No streaking, no ripples, nothing.
It's very bland.
It was just cream color. But we liked the other dahlias in the bag, so that's what we bought it. But we planted it.
Yeah.
And we took it to the market, farmer's market, and all the other dahlias, we never came home with dahlias. They all sold, except for cafe au lait. The comments were, it's too big. It's a really weird color. I just don't think it goes into a bouquet. And those days, way back in the beginning, we set up what people call now a flower bar. We had that. We set up tables, and what we were encouraging at our farmers market was young girls, because we were selling in college town.
Yeah, there's a lot of people live in apartments, so we always heard the same things like, well, I really don't have a place for an arrangement,
But
or a
but we
bouquet.
sold stems
So you
so
sell 'em
that
by the
they could
stem.
they can make, their own little bouquets or a few stems at a time. And I was trying to encourage college girls to not wait for somebody to give them flowers, but to buy their own. And they did.
Hmm.
But Cafe LA never sold. It was always, somebody would try it out and go, it's okay.
Which was weird, is because we also started raising it, I think a year later after that, we bought Spartacus
Yeah.
from Swan Island, which is a big red.
Big red.
And I mean, it's beautiful. And that one, people would just buy that one. One stem. That's like,
One stem.
instant bouquet,
Yeah.
But the Cafe au Lait always just kind of like drug on, and we were almost going to rogue it out. And
It wasn't also at that time, it wasn't a great producer of tubers.
at least the variety we got.
And after a few years, it started to kind of morph.
Yeah, it's one thing we noticed about dahlias and raising them is that some of them don't stay true to their origin. They kind of and if you're not really religious about roguing those ones out that change color or do what that you end up with a more dominant trait that maybe that isn't the one that the variety really that you originally bought isn't the dominant trait, and as this thing sports become better tuber producers, you tend to just go, oh, well, these are all my Cafe au Laits, but the ones producing the best tuber now is the sport that maybe the color changed, or maybe it's just not, maybe it's a little bigger, a little smaller, or something changed on it. And we've had a number of dahlias that, I guess if you call it unstable, that kind of did change. Another one was
Alamo.
a la mode, which was a Swan Island dahlia,
Right.
and it used to, in its original form, it was kind of a peachy coral colored center with white tips on the petals.
Right. And what was not, it was beautiful dahlia, but what was not attractive about it was the first thing that went were those white tips.
Yeah,
they turned brown.
It didn't really have a good vase life.
They didn't have a good vase life. However,
yeah, it created a sport
sport.
and did this more than once. And the sport was actually a little bigger flower.
Yep.
It was a much better tuber producer.
And the
color
was coral,
yeah.
peachy.
It had like 3 or 4 different color
Yeah,
strains.
it was like coral and peach and kind of a slight orange to it with this sheen of kind of this lavender sheen. It wasn't lavender on the petals. It just sort of glowed.
Yeah, it's kind of
lavender.
just a hint of lavender in the petal color.
And
if the light hit it right, you could see it better.
And tin stems used to make bunches that were.
Yeah, we'd sell them in 10 stem bunches, and they'd fly
They were
out.
and they would line up at the farmers market to buy those.
Yeah.
And at one point, we had almost 100-foot row of them.
Oh, we had much more than that. That was our biggest seller.
Yeah,
And,
so we just kept going. This was all at the farmers market,
but you'd take one plant, and you could get
almost
20,
all tins.
20 good tubers off it for the next year.
And one plant would almost produce, 5 stems current that you could take off. So 2 plants and you got 10 stem bunches.
Yeah, the plants were big and they were vigorous.
But the thing was, this was early, and dahlias weren't super popular. I mean,
they were getting to be that way.
They were getting to be that way, but, we kind of had changed people's attitude toward them. And the florists always looked at them as they were funeral flowers. The reason being that the vase life is not huge. We could get about 7 days out of them, and once
roughly.
we could convince the florist
It really depended on the type too.
Yes.
Something like a ball type really lasts a long time.
Right.
But if you had, something that was a dinner plate, a Spartacus type thing, it's
It
just too
was,
much surface area,
yeah.
and the Dahlia will last maybe 5 days.
And you really had to change the water on the big guy ones, and
So I mean, it kind of depended on the variety to some degree, but it had a pretty good vase life. But yeah, it really wasn't popular flower with florists at that time. That was back in the mid aughts. So
yeah. And so we just kept going.
yeah,
We would just kept buying more and more dahlia varieties, and we ended up
breeding
with
our own up too.
Yeah, he actually breeded several
Yeah.
really good ones.
We would save seed that we knew we had varieties next to each other. We weren't out there kind of like trying to dust them and all that stuff, put bags over it. Now we just collected. I just collected tons of seed, and then I'd plant it, and then I'd
Keep
put
what's good.
put the plants out someplace and just let's see what popped out of them, and if they were singles or whatever it is, I just rogue them out. But every once in a while, I'd say out about every 100 plants, I got one that was worth saying, maybe I should try this one again, raise it up to tubers and see if we can go again.
Got some real
And
beauties.
yeah, we had one that was it clearly was like a cross between probably a cafe au lait and I think Alamode, because it was much bigger than the Alamode. I mean, we were talking about something that had it was an informal, or what do they call it? I'm getting my mum
Yeah, I
classification
know. I
mixed
was
up with
going to
it.
say, where are
But
you going?
it was kind of not really a water lily, but it was, I guess, basically a decorative type, and it really had kind of an interesting center that was more the Alamode color, but the petals as they opened up were more kind of a blend of strawberry colored with the cafe au lait colors on it. It was really a nice.
There was one that looked sort of watermelon-like. Remember that
Yeah,
one?
right.
That was kind of light watermelon color, kind
Right.
of streaky.
But some of those, we'd breed them up or they'd plant them by seed and you go, oh, that's a good one. And then you find out it doesn't produce any tubers.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, well, that's kind of sad.
So at one point we had over 100 varieties, and probably
Yeah, by 2008, we were at least 100 varieties. We were
And
planting at that time
4,000
4 to 5,000 plants a year
Yeah.
for a farmer's market. Now, we were just selling farmer's market twice a week on like a Wednesday and a Saturday, and that's where the bulk of all that was going.
It was,
and we'd start selling in July and sell all the way to frost.
Right.
And so we'd move, I think on average we were moving probably 70, 80 bunches a week per market.
Right.
So yeah, it was pretty big for us.
Right.
I mean, relatively speaking, there's lots of people now that are super huge on dahlias. So,
Yeah,
but I mean, for
then
where we were,
and who else was selling, we were pretty much it. But then a couple of things happened
well, two things.
that tell the sad part of the story.
The first thing is our area is right next to grass seed farms. Particularly at that particular time, they were raising a lot of Oregon annual ryegrass or annual ryegrass. And one of the things, it doesn't really bother the ryegrass plants that much, but on a monoculture type situation, it's the larva of the spotted cucumber beetle feeds on the grass roots. And we locally around us, we had tens of thousands of acres of
This
this
is
grass
grass
seed
seed
stuff.
capital.
And we would get spotted cucumber beetles coming in
In
really pretty much by
waves.
mid-July,
In
just about the time they would
waves.
start to bloom, and they would come in waves, and you would have to use. We were up till 2000 and probably 7. We were having to use pesticides, or we were going to lose everything. We hadn't gone no-till at that point, and we hadn't, we weren't organic. But we were using a pesticide that Swan Island recommended. They use, it's a version of it, I guess. It's marketed under different names, but
I don't
at
know
that
if they
time
do now.
at
But
that time it was called orthene, and it was broad spectrum systemic type thing. It would get in the plant, but it was also pretty good at killing just about any bug that was around.
and the downside was that I did all the picking of the dahlias, and
Yeah, you could smell this
You
stuff.
could
Even,
s-
like we would have to apply this stuff like on a 7 to 10 day rotation just to keep these.
and we would do it far enough ahead.
Yeah. But
So that
when you're harvesting for 2 markets a week, you really couldn't be that far ahead.
and it just, I felt it was taking a toll on my health. I could breathe it. It just felt like it was coming out of my sweat.
Yeah.
And so we just said
We
no
stopped.
more.
We stopped
No
using
more.
it.
And that was the end of all pesticides,
Right.
herbicides,
Well,
everything.
At that point, yeah, and then we also, I think we used a fungicide just for a dip on the bulbs, or not bulbs, but the corm or tubers to prevent rot in storage. And, all that stuff is just nasty stuff.
So that was the first thing. And the insert of the picture, you'll see what happens when you stop.
Well, yeah, when you combine it with a traditional agricultural approach of tilling, and your soil life has kind of been nuked from the chemicals you've used, and when you stop and you go cold turkey,
devastation sets in.
yeah, the bugs can really do a number of things, and they did.
They did. On tons of stuff. They
I mean, they not only went after the
they
dahlias,
went
but
after
the
dahlias
sunflowers.
and sunflowers and zinnias and cosmos. They went after everything.
Yeah, it was tough. We'd have to, really be aggressive and try to go out and get things, and when we didn't never use those like bags over the flowers or anything. That was just not have been practical at all. We would have spent more time putting them on and taking them off than probably we would have got an advantage for it.
So the insect damage was the first blow.
Yeah, that really that cut our dahlia sales like in half. Just boom.
And then the second devastating thing happened.
Yeah.
And
December of 2009, Western Oregon and the Pacific Northwest got into an Arctic blast, they
our
call it.
dahlias hadn't even died back
Yeah,
yet.
it was early December. Typically, we were digging our dahlias by like Thanksgiving to the end. And it was weird. It was a weird year that year. It was warm, and we were still actually cutting on them
Yeah.
right up to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we were just about, we'd had a frost right around Thanksgiving.
Not a super killing one,
but it knocked him back, and we were just getting ready to dig these things, and there really was no warning that was weird about it from the weather standpoint. They just said one day, "Oh my God, you guys are going to start freezing tomorrow."
Arctic blast.
Arctic blast coming in, and so we went out and we tried to dig some, and then we tried to protect some others with throwing mulch over it, so because we knew we weren't going to get them all out of the ground.
So we tried more protection.
So we
than
tried more
anything.
protection than anything else. But what happened was
That
we went
blast.
into temperatures that were zero, or in some cases, in some nights, it was below zero. This is very weird for Western Oregon,
We don't get that kind
and
of
we don't get
weather.
that kind of thing very often. And the worst part about it is it never got above like 27,
It never
28
got above
degrees
freezing ever.
ever during the days, and this went on for almost 2 weeks. And what happened was
Ground
the
froze.
ground began to freeze, freeze deep. We're talking even the veggie farmers around here who were raising winter vegetables for the winter market lost substantial things even in their hoop houses because the ground was freezing in, and it was down. It was frozen things down to a foot. Now I know if you live in the Midwest, you go, what's the big deal? That happens every winter. That's why we put our frost-free faucets down, 3 feet, because it freezes. Well, Western Oregon doesn't do that,
So we
and
had
you're not
no
ready
idea.
for it. You
And
you just,
The temperature came up.
yeah, when it came up, by the time it came up, okay, so we started pulling back whatever mulches, that we had on things, and we found is it didn't matter.
It's mush.
They had turned to mush. It was like just like putting them in
Everything.
the freezer and pulling them out and going, hey, guess what?
Mush.
They were mush. We lost 4,000
4,000
plants.
plants.
Yeah,
No tubers.
we got very few. We got a few alamodes dug up, and a few other ones.
But
Um,
all the ones that we had
Yeah.
saved from his,
all the ones we bred up, they were all lost.
all the most beautiful ones that we had, kept and, kept changing and, to the trend of what our customers liked, what the florists started
Yeah,
to
so it's like 2008. We go to non-chemical, not thinking about how to deal with this even from a organic standpoint. And by the way, most of the organic sprays it didn't work on cucumber beetles. I mean, you'd spot kill them, but
it
the
didn't.
wind would just bring in another wave,
And they would be like they'd swarm around your face
Yeah.
and get in your eyes and your nose, and it was just
yeah. So anyway, between
the
that problem, which
the bugs,
and then
the
the
rot,
loss of all our stock.
which I cried for about 4 or 5 days.
It really kind of set the whole Dahlia side of our business on its head. And we did try to
We went back and bought some more.
bought some more.
But the bug
there's
problem.
a lot. But even Swan Island on the West Coast, we were talking to
Nick,
Gitz, yeah, and he lost, what did he say, like 5 acres of his 35 acres are just, they weren't able to get them in or saved or anything. So
we tried to grow a few more after the fact, but we still had a bug issue. We weren't going to spray for any reason, and at a certain point we just said we're wasting time and bed space, and
well,
just it wasn't coming on.
at that point too, I don't know if you call it competition picked up,
Yeah.
but in general, what was going on is dahlias were starting to catch on with florists too. So we looked at it and said, well, okay, so now
We
we've
don't
got
grow 'em
some
well.
so now we got some big wholesale growers,
Right.
and we weren't selling wholesale or to really florists at that point. Everything we were doing was in the farmers market. And there were some people that were coming into the farmers market that clearly weren't growing them, but were remarketing them, got them from someplace else. But set that issue aside. Is between the competitive pressures, the
Pressures.
difficulty for us in growing these things, it wasn't worth the labor.
We felt we could use the space for something else that we could do better.
Yeah, so we started just doing a broader variety of different things, and that actually plugged the hole pretty good.
Yeah, at a certain point we completely stopped.
Yep.
There was no
probably
more dahlias.
It's probably what, 2-3 years? No, maybe 3 years later after the freeze.
Right.
Yeah.
We just completely stopped. I talked to the various florists and designers that we dealt with, and everybody said, I like all your other flowers. They didn't miss them. And if they wanted dahlias, they found other places to get it.
Yeah, like I said, at that point, the competitive pressures were up. There's many, many more people growing them.
So
Yeah.
today, here we
Right.
are today, and one of the things that we kept going on all along that was a really a bug-eaten flower that we kept trying was the zinnia. Didn't cost us a whole lot, a
No.
packet of seeds and stuff, and so we said, well, maybe we'll just keep trying to figure out what it takes to get
Well, in the meantime, I mean, we've done a lot of different things to improve the biology
right.
of the soil in our place.
But and we have figured out and found out that when to plant zinnias and when to, what kind of
And then we can also,
potions.
yeah, but we also, I mean, besides the Korean natural farming things, which I do believe also help
Right.
the plant, But the other major thing that really changed the dynamic around here in the last 2 years is that annual ryegrass is like hardly grown anywhere near us anymore. There are grassy fields, but it's perennial ryegrass. But there's a lot of other things where they're raising clovers, they're raising mustards, they're raising Daconn field radish, they're raising meadowfoam, which is a whole different herbal thing. And so there's all these different kinds of seeds, and then a lot of filbert orchards are popping up. So what's going on now, instead of having this monolithic, grassy fields around us of all the same crop, now there's diversity, and things are rebalancing themselves. And what we've noticed, in particularly last year, is the waves of cucumber beetles did not come.
Yeah.
That was probably the first year that we've
seen it.
They're here, but they're not
like they were. And with using the KNF on our plants and on the soil, and moving them around and growing at a specific time, kind of after we've always noticed the worst of the cucumber beetles, we found we could grow zinnias really well without a ton of bug bites. So
and the same thing with the sunflowers. It definitely improved on that.
So we started, or I started to talk about, can we start to grow dahlias again? So here we are. We grew about a half dozen red ones.
Yeah, we took the cheap route. We went to Costco.
Back to Costco.
Back to Costco and got some.
Then some red and some orangey ones that came out okay. And we left them in the box, and I don't think they all came back. But
well, they were kind of not. They were experimental anyway.
But we then went back and got some from.
You bought them from a couple of places.
Tall Grass Farm. I think they're in Idaho, I want to say.
Yeah.
Or Eastern Washington. I'm not recalling now. I'll look that up. Got some that I had originally gotten from Floret when Aaron and Chris came down here once to see how to build the low tunnel. We exchanged dahlias. She was looking for one of our big yellows, and she sent us some beautiful Jamanda and Rust Bucket and one other one that were really fall colors, and those were lost. And so I wanted to find those, and I found a couple of those with the tall grass spokes. And then the rest we bought from Swan Island. And I'm growing mostly balls because that's always been the one most successful. And, one of
the longest space life too.
And one of our most hardiest is Marn, which I'll show you. I'll take a photo of it. Marn has lived in one of our hoop houses forever.
Yeah, it's in the front of one of our hoop houses that we back in, I guess it's 2012.
Well, that's when I was. We tried to grow in a hoop house.
And actually we did get significantly earlier.
But
we also got a huge rust and spider mite problem.
We're so bad.
Our hoop house just wasn't designed to give a good enough ventilation.
No. But Marn somehow got outside of the bed beyond the irrigation.
Yeah, I think I
tucked itself into a corner, and it's been growing there ever since.
Every year it just comes back. All I do is I just throw a shovel of compost over the top.
It doesn't even get watered.
Well, it's close
It
enough.
gets residual water from, being close, and it's probably got streamers way over there trying to reach for it. But it comes back every year with beautiful blooms. And sometimes in the years when it was bad with cucumber beetles, it'd get eaten, but it still kept producing. And we, trim it down and stuff, and then when it would die back in the freeze, we'd cover it back up. But that's all we ever did for it, and it's a winner. It produces really good.
So that was our original no-till dahlia.
Yeah. So that's
So
where
there,
we're.
Jenny.
So that we're there. We are. That's where we are today. We are going to put these. We don't have very many.
No, I think we've got. Oh gosh, I'm not at the exact count, but it's got to be less than 30. So we're just going to kind of do a bed of these guys. We're going to put them down in our, and we'll walk down and show the planting of these guys. Um, we did a video on the tarp reveal with the area where we tarped. Well, we're going to put them down in there, and it's kind of set up for it. But one of the things about this is we're going to really kind of do the Jadam system on them and see if we can get a crop of dahlias out of that has a minimal bug damage. It's acceptable level, and see if the combination of improving the biology, using natural farming techniques, and the fact that our neighbors are no longer monolithically annual ryegrass, if that's enough, that we have enough diversity and predators, because we've got a lot more predators. I mean, that was the thing too. When we stopped using orthene, you got to remember this orthene stuff, it killed everything, good, bad, or ugly. It didn't matter. And
Now we have
and if it was
pretty
going down,
mantis
if it was
and-
going down in the roots of the plant, which it was, so what it had to be doing to the soil biology is probably not a good thing down there either.
But we have all kinds of good guys now. Praying mantis.
Oh yeah, all kinds of
ladybugs,
parasitic wasps, tons of spiders,
honeybees,
snakes.
Ugh. Yeah. But anyway, so that's what this video is all about. The story of how we started with dahlias and now we're going to try again. This area that we're going to work on experimentally with the dahlias, and we're going to put some of the zinnias down there. The area is where we used to get all this bug damage. When the zinnias were down there, we used to get all the bug damage down there, and when we moved the zinnias up here to the boxes where we do the daffodils zinnia thing, there's less bugs up here. So we want to see if what we apply down there works for the zinnias down there.
Right.
So this is all experimental again, doing the dahlias. I'm not going to be a big, huge dahlia farm.
Nah.
And my goal is just a few dahlias to maybe sell to,
The thing about dahlias is it's a beautiful flower. There's so much variation, or there's all kinds of different bloom types and colors.
Most of these are oriented for fall.
Right.
My color scheme is all dark colors, fall, rich,
Well, we're like
saturated
we're
colors.
like late May right now, so we're actually a little later than you would for around here.
Yeah, we would have started.
I mean, you're still kind of like in the primo planting time, but a lot of the real big growers, they've already put their stuff in, and they're probably looking at dahlia plants that are 4 or 5 inches tall. Our bed wasn't ready at the time, so when we got the dahlias, what we did is we potted them up and sprouted them in pots, which is not something we would normally do. But when it wasn't done for like, oh, this is going to give some kind of magical fix to making them better. It was more of, well,
we're not ready.
we knew we had to get them at least sprouted, and so we put them in either rose pots or good like 6-inch pots, and that's what we're going to transplant.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, these aren't wedding flowers or anything like that. These are just
enough.
Fall colors. Yeah, there's not enough.
You only got like 2 plants each variety.
If I get any blooms, maybe I'll offer them, a bloom bunch
so
here
stay
and there.
tuned, folks. We're going to be opening the Dahlia store.
No, we're not.
What do you mean? Instagram keeps telling you got to open a store.
This is for us. We just want to see if we can do them again. It's where we started, and I don't want to do it with any kind of pesticides or herbicides, fungicides, any of that. I just want to.
Nothing called a side.
Yeah.
Nothing ending with side.
I just want to have beautiful blooms that don't make me sick. To have them. So guess now we're at the point where
let's go down and do it.
Let's go plant them.
Yeah, let's go do it. Okay.
Okay.